ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for clicking on another Rank the Movies video. This week, well, it's a new week. We're through February. We're now into March, which is great. I've got no theme for March, so we're just going to dive right into what I'm talking about today. Today I'm talking about a pair of movies, a movie and its sequel. I kind of want to look at when can you just go back to the well? Because there's a lot of movies where their sequel are basically just rehashes of the original film. And sometimes they happen too quickly. If it's based on a book, it gets a little more sketchy because, I mean, is it really a rehash then if it's based on a sequel to a book or a novelization sequel? It gets a little weird. This is one of the... I'm going to talk today about a movie that has a sequel that could have just rehashed the original story, but decided not to. And if I think it should have or not. And that is Neil Simon's The Odd Couple, starring Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon. I love this movie. I think it is a great piece of cinema. Basically, your general plot is Jack Lemmon has just been, his wife has just left him, kicked him out of the house. He tries to commit suicide. He's unable to. So he goes to his friend, played by Walter Matthau, who ends up taking him in, and it is about the fact that one of them is kind of a slovenly man, and the other one is a much more well-kept and tidy individual, and it's about their clashing personalities as they live together, and how it tests their friendship. It's a great film. If you've never sat down to watch Neil Simon's Odd Couple, whether the theatrical film, a stage production of it, I haven't watched the TV show, the original TV show. I caught some episodes of when I was a kid. It's pretty good. I'm not sure about the remake, though. The fact that it stars Thomas Lennon and Matthew Perry, I would watch it if the opportunity arose itself. I'd totally check out that TV show because that's a great cast for a TV show. But yeah, it's a phenomenal film. It's not super long, because again, it is based on a stage play. It did start its life as a play with actors performing on stage, so it was translated into film. And it does such a good job with it, and it does such a great dynamic, because it really does focus on the dynamic of the two main characters being thrust together in a situation where they have to live together. By the end of the play and movie, Jack Lemmon is back on his feet and is no longer living with his friend. So that's great. So 30 years later, in the 90s, because this one came out, I just want to get the date correct, 1968 is when The Odd Couple came out. In 1998, they released a sequel called The Odd Couple 2. So yeah, 30 years later, they made a new film. So now you get a sequel. Neil Simon wrote it. It still stars Matthau and Lemmon, come back to reprise their roles as Oscar and Felix. And they get to do the whole shtick over again. Now the question is, in 30 years, do they need to have a new plot? Or could they just go back and rehash the plot of the original one, where now they're both retirees, and they end up having to live together, and the trial and tribulations of that relationship. That's not what Neil Simon decided to go with, however, because The Odd Couple 2 has a completely original idea. It's a travel story where these two characters are thrust together to attend their children's wedding, because one of their Oscar's son is marrying Felix's daughter, I believe is how it is, or it's the other way around. But anyways, they are now going to become family, and they're traveling together to the wedding, and it's about their misadventures getting there. And I get why this movie was made. This came out right in the Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon re-emergence of the 90s, where you got grumpy old men, grumpier old men, Out to Sea, this one, and I think there's one more out there, where it's the two of them being paired back together. Because in the 60s and the 70s, they did a bunch of movies together. They did The Odd Couple, and there are more you can look up that are Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau paired together in comedic roles. So that got a reboot, like it got brought back in the 90s, with grumpy old men, and this is just one of those movies that came out because of that. It was a response, oh, these guys are making money, let's make a sequel to a movie, to a property we already have figured out. We don't need to write a new script, we have a property, we'll make a sequel. So it's a road trip movie, which is weird because it's just not what you expect. It's still, that dynamic is still explored. It's still written by Neil Simon. It's a good movie. Both of these are really good. The original is the better of the two because, again, by the time you get to 98, you kind of want the rehash. Like, you sit there and go, oh, it's been 30 years. I want to see the rehash story. And you get this new story. It's like, that's great. I wish they would have made this sequel in the 70s. Because then an original idea would have been great. By the end of the movie, it does actually, where Jack Lemmon shows up at Walter Matthau's house in a retirement village to move in with him because he has been kicked out of his house again by the woman he's with now. So it ends on the idea that we're going to rehash the original movie. It ends on that idea. But I feel like this is one of those times where a sequel really could have just rehashed the original idea. And been quite successful, quite popular. Again, I like both movies. They're both really fun watches. The Odd Couple is your more straight-laced. It looks like a stage play that's been filmed because it does have the very cramped settings of, it's basically just Felix's apartment, or Oscar. Sorry, Oscar is Walter Matthau. It's basically just his apartment. It does venture out because it is a film to the hallways, the roof, and the beginning where Felix is trying to kill himself and him wandering around. And that's actually, suicide isn't funny. It's pretty amusing. Just because he goes to try to open a window. He goes to a hotel, asks for a room. They give him like a second floor room. He goes, no, can I have something on the top floor? And then he tries to open the window and he like pulls his back trying to open the window. It's pretty amusing. Also, the way his friends react because he shows up at a poker game at Oscar's house or his apartment, and they realize they've already been called by his now ex-wife that he's out there. They don't know where he is. He might be trying to do harm to himself. So they're like really trying to like be good to him. And when they find out he might have swallowed a bunch of pills, they're like trying to figure out, do we make him vomit? Do we call an ambulance? One of them, Walter Matthau goes, how do we know what he took? He could have taken vitamin C. He could be the healthiest one here. It's just a great scene. It's actually a really hilariously funny movie. If you've never seen the original Odd Couple, definitely check it out. The sequel isn't bad. If you like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, it's definitely worth it for that. It isn't as good as the original. It's down a peg, but it's still a pretty good movie. Again, if you've watched the original Odd Couple, if you like Grumpy Old Men, if you like Grumpier Old Men, check it out. It's no worse than any of the rest of them. Alright, well, that is all I've got to say for this week. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Like the video if you liked what I said. Leave a comment if you've got something to say. Maybe you have watched the new TV show, or the TV show that was on with, I don't think that's still on, I think it got canceled, but the Thomas Lennon and Matthew Perry show. Let me know how good that one is as far as Odd Couple movies go. Next week, I'm going to be talking about a comedy troupe and their films. That's right, I'm talking about the Broken Lizard films. It's going to be a lot of fun, so come back next week. I am Martin Prevost. This is Rank the Movies. Have a great week.